On today's show, the Cavs win again. They're 17-1, and I don't think this is a hot streak anymore. I think that this is just who the Cavs are. Plus, another great game from Ty Jerome. We'll talk about all that and so much more right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. The show is also available on YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase today. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 17-1 after they beat the Toronto Raptors 122-108 at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on Sunday night. And I don't think that this is just a hot streak for the Cavs anymore. I think we're past that point. A hot streak for a team, I think, is having a really nice 10 games or a really nice 12 games, maybe at the most. But we're 18 games into this now. We're more than a month into the season. I don't think anymore that this is just, the Cavs have gotten off to a nice start. And I think we're starting to hear that a little bit less and less. The Cavs are just a really, really good, I think, great basketball team with the way that they've been playing. And I don't think it's just some hot start. I think that this is who they are. I think they are great. I think they're a team that should, and in most circles, is being taken seriously as a true NBA championship contender. And I thought that Sunday night was a really good test of that, because this was the first time all year that the Cavs were coming into a game where they were a well-rested team, right? So much talk here and other places was that the Cavs had played their first 17 games in 29 games, which is an incredibly difficult task right out of the gate to have so much play in so little time. And I think more important than the rest time actually is the fact that they really haven't had any practice time. They had a practice on Saturday, which was like their first practice, like true real practice since they started the season. They've had shoot-arounds plenty, but they haven't had very many practices. So they haven't had the opportunity to work on things. And they've still been the best team in basketball. I know they have one loss to Boston, but they've been the best team in basketball. And I thought by watching on Sunday, that really rang true, because they did, and I will talk about the defense a little bit more coming up later, but they did work on defense over this break. That was a thing that needed to be improved. They came out, I thought they had a better, still not perfect, but a better game on the defensive end of the floor. That to me is a sign of a really good team, finding a weakness and working on it. And two, Toronto is a team that plays very physically. I think they're very handsy defensively. I think they do a good job of making teams play their style and sort of mucking up the game, because I don't think that it's a team that is super talented right now. Like, Scotty Barnes is a fine player, but I don't view him as somebody that is a number one on a good team. Like, he's okay. But what they do is they make the game very physical, and that can get other teams out of sorts. I will say I do think Toronto is probably a little bit better than the record right now. They've not won a ton of games. I think they're better than what the record says. But I thought the Cavs did a great job for 90% of this game. I thought the Cavs did a great job controlling this game. And when a game is as physical as it was on Sunday, when one team has such a free throw advantage, the way that the Raptors did on Sunday, where they shot 34 free throws and the Cavs only shot 14 free throws, I thought Cleveland did a very, very good job of still being able to control this game and still having their thumbprint all over this game, where they led by double digits for the vast majority of it. I know Toronto went on a run in the third quarter. I believe they cut it down to 3. I don't know if it got to 2. I don't know if it got any closer than 3. I know they cut it down to 3. And then the Cavs basically regrouped and put their foot back on the gas. And next thing you know, it's the fourth quarter. They're up by 17 points again. So I do think that game control, which is what we've seen a lot from this team. Like they've won 17 games this season. I believe 10 of them have been by 10 or more points. So they're winning. They're not just winning these games. They're not squeaking them out. Yes, there have been a couple that have been close games, like the 2 against Milwaukee were obviously close games. The one in New York was a close game. But for the most part, the Cavs are not only handling business, but they're dominating teams. And I think that is one of the best things that you can say about a great team, not just a good team, not just a team that's on a hot start. The Cavs are a great team, and I think they deserve to be talked about as such. Now, how did they win this game? Ty Jerome was a really big part of it yet again. And I have some things to say about Ty Jerome that I think are similar to what I'm saying about the Cavs. And Ty Jerome is not all of a sudden some great player, right? Like he just didn't transform into a Hall of Fame caliber player. The Cavs are the way the Cavs are a great team. But I also think at a certain point, I don't know if we're there with Ty yet, but we've got to be close. At a certain point, you sort of are what you are. And we have viewed this as the most pleasant surprise of the season for the Cavs because it has been. Ty's been awesome this year. And considering what last season was for him and really what his career had been like before he was in Cleveland, nobody could have seen this coming. I don't think I know people inside that organization did not see this coming from Ty Jerome. They saw a great summer, they saw a great training camp, but no one predicted that he would look like this deep into the season. It might still be a hot start for him, but I also don't see what he's doing aside from some of the shooting numbers are a little high for him, right? But other than that, I think he's playing pretty sustainable basketball. I do. I don't think that he's just at this point just another role player. I think that he's somebody that you have to consider as, okay, this is a guy that the Cavs can count on to come in on a nightly basis and make a positive impact on the game because that's all he's done. You can look at his game logs. You can watch the Cavs. He's basically had one bad game this season. That game in New York, he didn't play well in the first half. I'm not sure that he played in the second half. But since then, he's been fantastic. In his career, Ty Jerome has 10 games with 20 or more points throughout his entire career. 10 games with 20 or more points. 4 of them have come in the last 3 weeks. I don't know that I'm ready to go, oh, this isn't just a really, really good stretch for this player. But we're getting closer to, and he's not going to be 20 points a night, but we're getting closer to saying Ty Jerome's one of the best backup point guards in the league, right? I think we're getting closer. I don't know that I'm entirely there yet. Maybe if I'm having this conversation next week after 2 matchups with Atlanta and a game against Boston next Sunday, if I'm still talking about Ty Jerome in this way next week, I think we're probably at that point where Ty Jerome's just a really good basketball player because he's shown us nothing other than that this year. All he's done is say, hey, I'm a really good basketball player. He had 26 points tonight. That's the second. If he would have done this a week ago, it would have been the best game of his career. The only reason it's not is because he had 29 points against New Orleans on Wednesday night. That's the only reason why I'm not talking about this game on Sunday against Toronto as the best game of Ty Jerome's career because he just had a better one 3 days ago, 4 days ago, whatever you want to say. And I feel like I've said that 3 or 4 times this year. And at a certain point, you just have to look at him and say, this dude has leveled up his play. He's become a better basketball player. I think we're getting really close to that. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I think we're getting really close to this just being who Ty Jerome is. And I think that the value he provides for this team, because Donovan Mitchell has been really, really good this season. Darius Garland, I think, has been one of the best players compared to what he was last year. Like, I think he's taken one of the biggest steps up in the NBA across the entire league with his play this year. I know he didn't play great in Boston, but still. Karis LeVert, I think, has been good, but that knee is bothering him. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show too. But having somebody come off the bench, the way that Ty has consistently come off the bench for the Cavs and provided the value in shooting, overall scoring, playmaking, and defense too. The way that he's been able to have so many steals throughout this stretch, he's provided value in all facets of the game. And I think that is incredibly valuable to look at and say, you know what, if Donovan needs a night off, or if Darius needs a night off, or if one of those two guys just don't have it going on a certain night, the drop off between them and what's coming off the bench, like there's still a drop off there. Don't get me wrong. Ty Jerome is not Donovan Mitchell. But the drop off between those two players is not nearly what we would have thought it to be at the start of this season. And that adds just that depth that the Cavs have, particularly at that spot now. That adds so much because it means Donovan doesn't have to play as much. It means Darius doesn't have to play as much. It means that the bench lineups are going to be better, which they have been. Ty Jerome does all of that. And Ty Jerome, again, I'm not going to go out and say, oh, he's the reason they won tonight. No, they won by more than 10 points. They had a lot of things go well, and Toronto was just never going to win that game. But he's a big reason why they're 17-1. He's been, I think you can make a case, he's been the most pleasant surprise of the entire NBA season. Because the Cavs are not just a team that's gotten off to a hot start. They're a great team. And I think we're getting closer to saying Ty Jerome's just not on a hot streak right now. He's just a really good basketball player. Not there yet, but we're getting closer. We've talked a ton about defense lately with this Cavs team. I think that they're a flip the switch defense. I'll tell you why next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. So you hear me say Skims and you think, oh, that's not for guys, right? No, it's for guys. I promise you. Because when I heard the same thing, Skims is making underwear for men? That can't be great. No, it is. I promise it is. Skims is, and I've worn throughout my life, I've worn a lot of different brands of underwear. I have. Skims is the best. I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. I have received a few pairs of Skims underwear for men. It is the best underwear that I have ever worn. It's the most comfortable. It is incredibly breathable. It is the best underwear experience that I personally have had. And I want you to have that underwear experience. Skims for Men will give it to you. They have various different kinds. They've got cotton boxer briefs. They've got stretch boxer briefs, which those are the ones that I like. That's what I have. I think they're fantastic. It's the best underwear that I've ever worn. I don't think that I can give a higher endorsement of an underwear brand because I've had Skims. Like I was questioning it when I found out, we're going to be trying out Skims. I'm like, is this really going to be for me? Yes, it's for me, and it'll probably be for you too. So if that's something you want to try, you can shop Skims Men at skims.com/lockedonnba. That's skims.com/lockedonnba. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show that's Locked On NBA in the drop-down menu that follows. Plus, the holidays are here, and if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims did just launch their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/lockedonnba. Again, that's skims, skims.com/lockedonnba. Guys, it's been the best underwear I've ever worn. Might be for you too. Worth giving a try. Again, skims.com/lockedonnba. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave a nice review, and be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. So the Cavs, I thought, had some defensive slippage prior to this game. That has been a term that's been thrown around by the Cavs, and I think if you've watched this team, you would probably agree. In their last 10 games, prior to Sunday night's game against Toronto, the Cavs ranked 19th in defensive ratings. So if you took everyone's last 10 games, the Cavs were the 19th best defense. You can look at this roster. You can look at the guys on the team. You can look at the starting lineup, and nothing about that says, yeah, that should be a bottom half of the league defense. They have not been as good as they should be on that end of the floor, and they know that. I think that this defense is one that is, think back to the second LeBron era Cavs, where especially after they won the title in 2016, it was always, oh, they'll just be able to flip the switch. The regular season doesn't matter. They'll be able to flip the switch and they'll be fine. And to be fair, they were capable of doing that. The Cavs as a team are not capable of doing that, but I think I'm starting to get the feeling that they sort of think they can do that defensively, that they sort of think when they need to ramp up and get ready for the postseason, which, that day will come. This team's 17-1. Talking about that is not a crazy thing. That they will be able to do that. And I asked, there was a lot of conversation about defense after this game because the Cavs did have a good defensive game. Their defensive rating against Toronto was 103.9. Very good. That would be, if the Cavs play like that all the time, they're going to be the best team in basketball. They're going to continue to be the best team in basketball, I should say. So I did think that the defensive effort was better tonight, but I don't think that it's perfect all of a sudden. I still think that this defense has areas to improve upon. Like, I think that they need to get better at not fouling. I think they're 27th before Sunday. I haven't looked after Sunday's game against Toronto. I think they were 27th in foul rate. They're just putting teams on the free throw line far too often. Toronto shot 34 free throws on Sunday night. The Cavs shot 14. It's going to be really difficult to survive in the postseason when there is such a big gap or such a big disparity in free throw attempts. Now, I do think the Cavs get the sense that they should be getting more whistles than they are. But Darius Garland did not shoot a free throw on Sunday. Donovan Mitchell shot one free throw on Sunday and was on a defensive 3-second technical foul. So I don't think that the Cavs think they're getting the whistle that they should be getting. Now, part of that is I think that they're operating with a little bit more space because Kenny Atkinson's offense is working, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I do think that the Cavs, I don't think they've gotten lazy on defense, but I don't think that they are playing that end of the floor to the level they could or should be playing. And Jarrett Allen talked about after the game that they are a team that is and should be chasing perfection, right? They're 17-1. They're not chasing someone else's record. They're not trying to chase someone down for the 1 seed. They are the best record in basketball. They are right now chasing being perfect. That is not obtainable. They will not be perfect. No one will ever be perfect in this game. But that's what they're chasing. On the defensive end of the floor, it looked a little bit more like that on Sunday night, but it has not looked like that consistently. I get the sense that because this team that has been together, that has played a lot of basketball together over the past couple of years, they know that they are great defensively. So that means, at least in what I'm seeing, that if they're not great defensively right now, they're not worried about being able to be great defensively when it matters. They think that they can flip the switch and become a great defensive team. I don't think that's impossible, but I don't think that's the best way to go about things. I think that they do need to build on that end, and I think that they will get better in time. It's not the most concerning thing that on November 25th, they're not the best defense in basketball, despite having so many good defensive pieces. But this is a roster that should finish, especially with how well they've started off the year on offense. This is a roster that should be top 5, both in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency at the end of the year. Right now, they're not there. They need to get there, though. It's possible they can get there. I think they should get there. If they do that, they are a true championship contender. I think they're a true championship contender anyways, but I think it's fair to be a little bit worried that the defense has not been where it needs to be. They need to stop fouling. And I do think that a lot of it is, and Jarrett Allen used the word, I believe he said complacency. I don't disagree with that. They look, and especially because the offense has been so good too, I think that might be a little bit of it as well, where they can score so many points, where they've had how many games with over 130 plus points, that if they don't have a great night defensively, they can make up for it on the other end, maybe in ways that they haven't been able to in years past, where, oh, well, this team like Boston, for example, last Tuesday night, Celtics hit 53% of their threes against the Cavs. Maybe they're not going to be able to slow them down. They think they can outscore teams because they have done that this year. They've been the best offense in NBA history. But I think if they want to get to where they want to get to, which is raising the Larry O'Brien trophy in June, they're going to need to be a better defensive team than what they've been right now. It is incredibly possible. I don't think that this is something that is worth totally raising red flags over right now, because it's the end of November and there's a lot of basketball left to be played. But I think it's something worth noticing that this is a team that I do believe thinks that they have a switch to flip. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think that switch needs to be flipped before the playoffs. I think that switch probably need to start being a really, really good defensive team by the end of next month. I'm willing to wait until then, but I do think it's worth noting that they've talked about knowing that they are not where they need to be on that end of the floor quite yet. They need to improve. I thought Sunday night was a step in the right direction. Often the rebounding needs to be better, and we can talk about that too. But I thought that this was a step in the right direction for the Cavs. We got some injury updates over the weekend as well at Cavs practice, and after the Cavs beat the Raptors on Sunday, Max Strus still hasn't played this year. What's the latest on him? I'll tell you next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace. Game Time should be your go-to ticket marketplace. And, because this is Locked On Cavs, you think, oh, basketball tickets. Yes, go to Game Time for that. But they've got more than just sports. Maybe you want to go to a play this holiday season. Maybe there's a concert in town that you want to see. Game Time can get you in the door at those places as well. And I talk about all the benefits that I like when I'm buying tickets on Game Time, the all-in ticket pricing, know what your seat's going to look like. Those things, they don't just work on sporting events. They don't just work on hockey and basketball and baseball and football. No, those work on the concerts and the shows and whatever else you might want to go to that Game Time has tickets for. They will show you the all-in pricing. Just toggle on. I want to know what it's going to cost from the start. Hit that all-in pricing feature, and you won't be surprised at the last minute. Doesn't matter if it's a game or a show. You want to know what your view of the stage looks like. Game Time will let you do that right inside the Game Time app. That's why it's my go-to ticket marketplace. That's why it should be your go-to ticket marketplace. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That sounds pretty good, right? Who doesn't want that? Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. I've told you a ton about FanDuel. Why? Because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and there's so much action going on right now, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the NBA, NHL, whatever it is, FanDuel is the place to go. I told you so much about the Cavs odds for the NBA Cup, which, as you might imagine, don't look as good as they once did. They were plus 650 to win the NBA Cup. They're down to plus 800, which this tells me that FanDuel still does think the Cavs are going to get out of group stage. Now, the Boston Celtics are in their group. The Celtics will hold the tiebreaker. Cavs have a couple of NBA Cup games coming up that are going to be very important. They've got the Atlanta Hawks left, and they've got the Washington Wizards left. That'll be Friday and Tuesday. They need to win those games. If they do that, they'll advance, I think, because they're in a pretty good spot with the tiebreaker of point differential. If you believe in them, plus 800, not bad odds at all. So FanDuel, the place to go and do that. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, if you're looking for more Cavs coverage, covering the team with my new Substack, The Inside Shot, go check it out there. Writing about the team almost every day, certainly after every single game. I just posted a story about how the Cavs offense is different than it was last year, despite having the same roster. Might talk about that a little bit later this week right here on Locked On Cavs. But if you want to read that, get some really cool stats, head on over to the Inside Shot. A link is in the description of this episode, whether it's on podcast or on YouTube. But we did get some injury updates over the weekend for the Cavs. Obviously, Max Strus has not played in a game this year for Cleveland. He had an ankle sprain right near the end of preseason. Originally, it was, I believe, a 6-week reevaluation. We're getting closer and closer to that 6-week mark. I think that'll be right around December 7th and 8th when the team is in Charlotte and Miami. I think that'll be right around 6 weeks. I asked Kenny Atkinson about this on Saturday after practice, and Atkinson said that, he is progressing, but he's still a ways away from playing. I would not expect Max Strus to be on the floor for at least a couple more weeks. Probably, I think maybe a little bit before Christmas could be the timeline for him. I've not heard of any setbacks, but this is something that was a pretty severe ankle sprain for it to keep him out as long as it has. And I know that we don't necessarily know Max all that well as a Cav because he's only been here for 1 year, but he's not going to sit out of things just to sit out of things. Like if Max Strus is capable of playing, Max Strus is going to be playing. So I think that we're going to see him next month. I would start to get worried if we don't see him until January. But I also think that the Cavs, because of how good they are, they have bought themselves time to where they don't need to rush somebody like Max back from an injury. When Max is capable of playing again and when he's near 100% or at 100%, that's the time to bring him back. But I don't think rushing him back makes any sense with how good this team is in terms of record. They're 17-1 right now. They're going to win a lot of basketball games. I would be stunned if the Cavs are not a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Absolutely stunned. They don't need to rush Max Strus back. They need to have him to win a championship, I believe, but they don't need him in early December. So I would expect him maybe by the end of next month. I think that makes sense. But that's the latest update on him. Dean Wade, I don't get the sense that this ankle injury is something to be super concerned about. He did not practice on Saturday. I did see him getting shots up, doing some light shooting work after practice at the facility. I don't think that this is something that's going to be a super long-term thing. It would not surprise me if he's playing within the next 10 days. I think that's possible. I don't know that it's probable, but I do think that is something that is possible. I don't have an update on Caris LeVert. He also did not practice on Saturday. This is the same knee, I do believe, that bothered him in the postseason last year. And I do think that, maybe he's able to be back this week and the Cavs can look at the stretch where he hasn't played since, what was it, last Sunday against Charlotte, I believe was the last time he played. So it's been a week. Has a couple of more days off before the Cavs are back in action on Wednesday against Atlanta. 10 days off. That could do him really well. We will see. But we'll find out more as the Cavs continue to roll along this week. They do have two games against Atlanta, Wednesday and Friday. They've got a game against the Boston Celtics, a rematch of last Tuesday's game in Boston. This one will be at home next Sunday. I will have a whip around episode coming up a little bit later today, both on YouTube and your podcast platforms. Going to chat with Brad Rowland, who does a great job covering the Hawks over at Locked On Hawks, plus our friend John Corrales, who hosts the Locked On Celtics podcast. I will talk with both of them Monday afternoon, so look for that in your feeds as well. I know a lot of you guys have liked those episodes, getting to learn a little bit about who the Cavs are going to be facing this week. I think it'll be a good chance to take a little bit of a deeper dive, considering there's only 2 different opponents on the schedule for the Cavs this week. But thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, whatever podcast platform you listen on. Locked On Cavs is there. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. The Cavs are 17-1. I'll be back to talk about them a little bit later right here on Locked On Cavs.